2027 will now come to order. Would you please stand for the playing of the national anthem? Councilmember Mitch Brown, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, Council is pleased to be joined by Pastor Vince. Pastor, welcome to Council.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your diligence, for your foresight. Dear God, we ask that you be with all of those who are scheduled to participate in this meeting tonight, dear God. We ask, Heavenly Father, that you be with all of our legislative officials, dear God, locally, statewide, and nationally, dear God. Allow them to work in the best interest of the people. Be with those who have been affected by the pandemic, dear God. I ask that you maintain a sense of safety for those who haven't been affected, dear God, but be with those who are mourning right now in the midst of everything that is going on in our world abroad, dear God. I ask that you be with those working on the front lines, the nurses, the doctors, the janitors, the people that are working in hospitals and fast food restaurants and stores, retail all over this land, dear God. I ask that you be with our armed men and women who are serving in our military, Heavenly Father. I ask, dear God, that you just be with us. Allow this meeting to be conducted in a manner that showcases open minds and pure hearts, dear God. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Minister Ford. Minister Ford is a senior minister at Church of Christ in Genesee Avenue. Thank you so much for praying with us this evening. Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Harden. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson, President Harden.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This week's communications received by the city's clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published into the bulletin. Are there any other pieces to be read into the record?
Yes, President Harden, members of council, we have letter addressed to the city clerk from the Franklin County Board of Elections dated June 30th, 2020, stating the following. On behalf of the Franklin County Board of Elections, I hereby certify that the board has examined the part petitions for initiated charter amendment community bill of rights received by our office from you on June 23rd, 2020. The numbers of valid and invalid signatures on the part petitions for the prospective initiative are as follows. Total signatures, 8,911. Valid signatures, 6,420. Percentage of valid signatures submitted relative to the number of total raw signatures, 72%. The total number of voters, electors that participated in the 2019 general municipal election was 98,698. The number of electors who represent 10% of the total electors is 9,870. Please let us know if we may assist further. Jeff Mackey, Manager of Petitions and Campaign Finance. In addition to the communication from the Board of Elections, the City Clerk has forwarded 2 members of City Council, City Attorney Klein's memorandum dated June 22nd, 2020, regarding legal sufficiency of the same initiative petition as required by Section 42-9 of the City Charter, which states the City Clerk shall, upon receipt, forthwith forward to the Council the Elections Authority's report regarding signature validation and the City Attorney's findings regarding legal sufficiency.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and we will consider that later in this meeting during Rules and Reference Committee. As I've been at the beginning of each council meeting, I'd like to quickly go over how many of our neighbors that we've lost due to COVID in the last week. I think that it's important to do this so that we remember that this virus is here. This virus sometimes can be you can't see it, invisible, but it is here. And so as of today, we've lost 344 Columbus residents due to COVID-19, and that's 33 more deaths than we had this time last week when we met. We also know that we've seen a spike in Columbus of new COVID cases, meaning that we are going to lose more of our neighbors unless we act, and we act. And that's why I am happy that this council will be considering a mandatory mask legislation later this evening to continue to protect our residents. And with that, I would like to ask our Health Commissioner Ashika Roberts, to speak just about where we are and what we're seeing as it pertains to COVID in our community. Dr. Roberts, you're unmuted, then it muted back again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you, Council President Hardin and members of Council. Thanks for having me here this evening with you. Yes, you are sharing some very sobering news for us about the loss of life that we've had right here in our community from COVID-19. And you're absolutely correct. This is a silent virus that most of us, unless we have a family or friend who's been touched by this virus, have not seen and don't understand the impact this virus can have on one's health. We continue to see an increase here in Columbus. Since March 13th, we've had 8,317 individuals right here in our jurisdiction who've been diagnosed with COVID-19. And we continue to see that. Over the last 10 plus days, it's actually been 12 days now, our daily average has been over 100 new cases per day. One day in particular, we had 229 new cases presented in one day. Imagine that I have a staff that have to interview all 229 of those individuals. So that is definitely an undertaking by my team to do that work. But it's important work because we need to understand this disease. We need to understand where those people were and who they might have exposed. So it's all a part of protecting everyone to do that interview, identify their close contacts, get those close contacts quarantined and or tested if need be, and making sure that they don't spread the virus on to others in our community. The mask ordinance that you're going to be discussing and hopefully passing this evening is very important for our community to help us reduce the spread of this virus right here in our community. We don't have a lot of options for this virus to treat this virus. Our interventions are limited, but they're all something that we as individuals can do to help slow the spread of this virus in our community. So the first one is to put on your mask. As Dr. Acton used to always say, don your cape and don your mask. And it's really important that we all put our mask on. It doesn't matter if you're having symptoms or not. Masks have been proven to be very effective in reducing the spread of this virus among individuals who are symptomatic as well as those who are pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic. You could be a carrier of the virus but not exhibiting any symptoms, but you could spread it to someone else who could present symptoms. And that person could be your grandmother. It could be your aunt who's going through chemotherapy for breast cancer. It could be your nephew who's got really severe asthma. So it's really important that we all wear our masks whenever we're around other people, and can't guarantee that there's going to be that 6 feet of spacing that we all recommend. So the other thing we can do besides putting that mask on is we can keep that 6 feet spacing. And then we can also wash our hands. So there's 3 tools that we have that we can use pretty regularly, and that's wear a mask, wash your hands, and maintain that 6 feet of spacing. And of course, if you're sick, if you're having any symptoms whatsoever, you should stay home. You should not go out in public and expose yourself to others until you know for sure what that illness is that you have, what symptoms you have, and make sure that it's not COVID-19. Our community does have free COVID-19 testing now, Monday through Friday, right here at Columbus Public Health. All you have to do is call 645-1519. Again, that's 645-1519. Or check out our website, which is coronavirus.columbus.gov. Happy to answer any questions. And if people do need assistance getting a mask, all they need to do is call 311.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. And we know a lot of folks, if folks were a little lax this weekend during the holiday weekend and were with a group of more than 10, even if they were their family, would you recommend them take any action? What would be your recommendation for folks who may have been around more than 10 people this weekend?
So again, testing is available, and you don't have to have symptoms, but we strongly discourage people from doing serial testing. So just testing just because you want to get tested. If you think you've been exposed to someone who has COVID-19 or were involved in some, potentially risky activities because you were in a large group, we do recommend testing, but ideally you should be tested approximately 5 days from that exposure. That's when the virus is most likely to peak and be detected when we do the test on you. And again, we don't recommend serial testing. So if we test you 5 days after exposure, then that's your test, and you wouldn't get tested again unless you exhibited symptoms. Then we would recommend you get tested again. So yes, if you were at a backyard barbecue or, doing some other activities where you were around people that weren't your typical household contacts, testing could be recommended if you think it was a risky behavior, if you weren't wearing your mask, if other people weren't wearing their mask. But again, I would wait at least 5 days after that exposure before getting tested.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Let me check and make sure. Any council members have any questions for the health commissioner while we have her? Seeing none, we're very grateful. Please pass along our appreciation to your frontline workers, those who are doing the contact tracing. When we see a spike, we have to remember that it actually affects other people's lives as well. So we all have to take that into consideration when we ask folks to do the things like wear a mask and socially distant, that it affects so many more people. Thank you, Dr. Roberts.
Thank you.
Are there any resolutions or announcements by council members, starting with President Pro Tem?
No, thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Mitch Brown.
Nothing this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember. Councilmember Dorns.
Thank you, Council President Harden. A couple announcements tonight. Wanted to invite Director William Scott from the Department of Neighborhoods to give a brief update on our area commission meeting virtually, as the mayor has addressed this in a recent executive order. Director William Scott.
Thank you, Councilmember Dorns and President Harden, and thank you for allowing me to share this information with you this evening. Last week, the mayor signed Executive Order 707-2020, and this executive order permits area commissions to suspend their election process and allows for an extension of area commissioner terms that would have normally expired June 1, 2020 through December 1, 2020. The City of Columbus, as you know, relies on the work of our area commissions to provide input, to serve public forums, and make recommendations to city regarding city business. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and consequent restrictions, some of our area commissions are unable to hold in-person elections and/or collect needed petition signatures required by their bylaws. This extension will enable area commissioners to continue serving beyond their previously determined term expiration date to ensure that the area commissions can continue to operate effectively and with quorum. All area commissioner terms expiring during this time are automatically extended through no later than December 31st, 2020. Should an area commission implement an alternative election process or choose to hold in-person elections prior to December 31st, 2020, individuals elected will be appointed for their full 3-year term. If area commissioners have questions, they are encouraged to work with their neighborhood liaisons to identify an appropriate election process for each commission area by the end of the year. And thank you again for allowing me to share this information.
Thank you, Director William Scott. I also just want to say thank you to all the area commissions in the city who have really done a great job of shifting their work virtually. It's the first time they've ever been asked to do something like this. And I think for the most part, and I think Director William Scott would agree that folks have enthusiastically continued to do what we always ask of them, which is serve their community in another way. So just want to say thank you to the commissioners that have continued to do that work even under difficult circumstances. I also want to remind folks that tomorrow the Public Utilities Committee will be hosting a joint public hearing with the Environment Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Remy, on the topic of utility aggregation. So it'll happen tomorrow, July 7th, virtually at 5 p.m. Representatives from Traybell LLC and other organizations will attend the hearing to discuss the city's efforts related to provide competitive retail energy supply costs for Columbus citizens and support renewable energy development, especially local renewable energy generation, to advance Columbus's sustainable economy and to ensure that suppliers provide quality, reliable service and first-rate customer service to folks in our community. This hearing will be available to live stream on CTV and broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1024, WOW Channel 3, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. The video will also be posted on the City of Columbus YouTube channel following the event. Folks are welcome to reach out to my legislative aide, Kevin McCain, at kbmccain, M-C-C-A-I-N, at columbus.gov, or visit my Facebook page and Communications from Council for more details on how they can participate in this important hearing. Thank you, President Hardin, and that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Council President Hardin. Just an announcement. Next Monday, July 13th at 5 p.m., I will be hosting a hearing of the Criminal Justice Committee to address hate group affiliation legislation. Members of the public who are interested in providing written or oral testimony should email Charles Newman at CENEWMAN@columbus.gov by July 13th at 3 p.m. with the subject line, Testimony for July 13th Hearing. Please reach out to my office with any additional questions. Thank you, Council President Hardin. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Remy.
Other than just saying, I'm looking forward to joining Councilmember Dorrance tomorrow for our aggregation hearing. Appreciate the work that his office put into that. And if anybody needs to contact my office, reach my aide, Jeff Carter, at jdcarter@columbus.gov in regards to aggregation. So looking forward to the hearing tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And last but certainly not least, Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you, President Hardin. I don't have anything this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there any comments by our other elected officials that have joined us from the City Attorney's Office, City Auditor?
None tonight, sir.
Welcome, Madam Auditor. Or the courts. I'm not sure I see anyone from the courts right now. Are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance on a resolution or the consent action portion of the agenda? Saying none, may we now have the motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation by the city clerk?
So moved.
There's a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorrance, Favor, Remy, Tyson, President Hardin.
Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance Committee, Ordinance 1521-2020, Public Utilities Committee, Resolution 76X-2020, Ordinances 330, 332, 949, 1423, 1429, 1448, 1459, 1468, 1469, 1471, 1473, 1483, 1489, 1508, 1510, 1516-2020, Public Service and Transportation Committee Ordinances 1426 and 1455-2020, Economic Development Committee, ordinances 1561, 1569, and 1641-2020.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have one written testimony received in advance from Commissioner Stephanie Coe against ordinance 1426-2020. The following ordinance appear on our agenda as consent action. Will the clerk now read those numbers into the record?
Finance Committee, ordinances 1376, 1476, 1478, 1505, 1515, 1524, 1530, 1544, and 1559-2020. Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinance 1317 and 1328-2020. Public Utilities Committee, resolution 88X-2020, ordinances 857, 1299, 1332, 1343, 1357, 1365, 1367, 1377, 1463, and 1519-2020. Neighborhoods Committee, ordinance 1477, 1513, and 1560-2020. Technology Committee, ordinances 1360 and 1520-2020. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinance 1151, 1371, 1399, 1414, and 1452-2020. Housing Committee, ordinances 1499, 1535, 1541, 1556-2020. Criminal Justice and Judiciary Committee, ordinances 1136 and 1472-2020. Economic Development Committee, ordinances 1431, 1442, 1497, 1528, 1529, 1539-2020. Administration Committee, ordinances 1522 and 1523-2020. Health and Human Services Committee, ordinances 1465, 1481, 1509, 2020, and appointments from the mayor's office numbered A0065, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, and 81-2020.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have one speaker joining us via WebEx, and that is Judge Angela Mingo. Speaking in favor of ordinance 1477, is Judge Mingo with us this evening?
Good evening, Council President Harden.
Welcome to council.
Members of council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening in support of ordinance 1477-2020. My name is Angela Mingo, and I serve as the Director of Community Relations at Nationwide Children's Hospital. Nationwide Children's is proud to partner with the Department of Neighborhoods and the City of Columbus in implementing the vision of the One Linden Plan. Our public-private partnership promotes improvements to existing housing stock in Linden. We know that safe, decent, affordable housing is essential to the health and wellness of children and families. Today's legislation builds upon the scope of the 614 for Linden Collaborative and enables families to receive the improvements necessary to safely stay in their homes. The Healthy Homes program will oversee this work. Healthy Homes is the affordable housing arm of Nationwide Children's Hospital and community development for all people. The program is part of the Healthy Neighborhoods, Healthy Families initiative and provides exterior home repair services to qualifying Linden families earning up to 65% of area median income. That equates to a family of four earning just under $55,000 a year. Eligible home improvements include repair and/or replacement of roofs, siding, and windows. Nationwide Children's Hospital has served the children in Linden for more than 25 years. Through our primary care center, we have provided healthcare services to more than 115,000 patients. Our services extend to our school-based clinics at both Linden McKinley High School and KIPP Columbus. We understand the intersection of health and housing and know that if we truly want to improve the health of children, we must improve their built environment. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Ms. Mingo. There are so many Mingos in service and public service. I called you Judge. I apologize for that. Thank you though so much for the support of Nationwide and the work in the partnership with the city on this really important.
Thank you again for your support.
Yes, ma'am. Are there any questions or concerns with the consent portion of the agenda and my council members? If not, may I have a motion for approval of these items as designated as consent?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Ordinances are passed. We will now proceed with the second reading of 30-day legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Recreation and Parks Committee. Thank you, Councilmember. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I have one ordinance in Recreation and Parks tonight. It is Ordinance 1329-2020 to authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with Play World Mid-States for the 2020 CDBG Playground Improvements Phase 2 project, to authorize the appropriation of $785,000 within the CDBG fund and in accordance with the 2020 Annual Action Plan as approved by Council, to authorize an expenditure of $785,000 from the CDBG fund and to declare an emergency. Phase 2 of the Playground Improvement Project will replace 5 playgrounds at the Far East Community Center, Dodge, Mock, NAFSCR, and Northeast Parks. All of the playgrounds are more than 20 years old and will be replaced with new equipment that exceeds current accessibility standards. Improved drainage will also be installed to prevent flooding issues. The funding comes from Community Development Block Grant dollars, or CDBG, in accordance with the 2020 Annual Action Plan. We also recently approved Phase 1 and Phase 3 of the Playground Improvement Project, which includes the replacement or installation of new playgrounds at East Haven, Mamie Moore, Cooper, Riverside Green, Indianola and 8th, Northeast, Big Walnut, and Driving Parks, as well as Howard Community Center and the retreat at Turnberry Shelter House. So we are making a lot of improvements to our playgrounds to help ensure safe outdoor activities for kids across Columbus. Emergency action is being considered so that construction can begin this summer. I would also like to note that because playgrounds are open again in the city of Columbus, we just want to encourage our families who are utilizing them and our children who are utilizing them to please continue to do so in a smart way. I will tell you, playgrounds are a big part of weekly life for my children and me. We bring our hand sanitizer. I follow my kids around with it. They're 4 and 2, so I got to catch them before they touch their nose or something after they've been down the slide. And we wash our hands as soon as we get home. If we go to a playground and it's too crowded and we can't keep a safe, my rule for my kids is 10 feet because they're so little, and we can't keep a safe distance of 10 feet from other children, then we leave. And they know that's the deal going in. And so they typically do so without fighting or whining. But just a reminder to folks, as you're utilizing our playgrounds, we want families to have this option. We're glad that they do, but please do so again in a smart way as we navigate this very serious global pandemic right here in Columbus. With that, are there any questions or comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Ordinance is passed.
Thank you, President Harden. That's all I have in Recreation and Parks or any of my committees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Public Safety Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Mitch Brown. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight I have Ordinance 1017-2020 to authorize the Finance and Management Director on behalf of the Fleet Management Division to establish purchase orders with PAR public safety equipment from previously established universal term contracts for the purchase of parts and services related to the upfitting of various vehicles for the use by public safety, and to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $1,052,707.87 from the Special Income Tax Fund. This ordinance authorizes the Department of Finance and Fleet Management Division to enter into a contract for parts and services that were used to upfit the previously purchased vehicles for the Division of Police and the Division of Fire. In total, this will prepare 68 vehicles for service. I'd like to ask Deputy Finance Director Dan Giancardello to comment on this legislation.
Thank you, President Harden, Safety Chair Brown, members of council. As the Safety Chair Mitchell Brown mentioned, this is a companion piece to upfit 68 vehicles for public safety. These vehicles were legislated at the end of February, approved by this council. This upfit is a little over $1 million, about approximately $1,050,000 to upfit these vehicles. This is a process we have used for a number of years. It's proved to be very efficient. We purchase the vehicles typically from a statewide contract, and then we have a universal term contract with PAR that was bid for upfitting a lot of the add-on equipment to make them frontline cruisers. That equipment would be things like the light bars, the dash cameras, computers, radio systems, those things that we typically would buy separate and then install. And then there's a variety of things that PAR also supplies that goes into all these vehicles, like fire extinguishers, some communications antennas, push bumpers, protective seating, and other related equipment, again, to make those full frontline police cruisers. Otherwise, these vehicles look pretty much like what you would largely see if you were to go to a Ford dealer. It's basically a Ford Explorer that is produced separately for police agencies. There are 51 patrol cruisers that would be upfitted, 6 freeway cruisers, 2 sergeant vehicles, 5 for K-9, 3 transport, and then 1 fire battalion chief vehicle. Again, this is pretty much the way that we have upfitted these for the past several years. If council would choose not to approve this ordinance this evening, that would basically mean we would have vehicles that, at least for the time being, we would not be able to upfit and put on the street, which would likely force us to have, for police to have vehicles on the street longer, which is going to increase maintenance costs for the fleet management division, ultimately for the city. As Brown mentioned, Kelly Regan, the fleet administrator, is also on the line and available to answer any questions you might have. I appreciate council's consideration of this ordinance this evening, and I also would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
If I may, Kelly Regan, who is the fleet management director, Kelly, can you also address the issue of how we address replacement of vehicles?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Director Brown. Thank you, President Harden, and thank you for having me. We have a replacement schedule that basically is miles and maintenance. And once a vehicle exceeds so many miles and maintenance, then we replace that vehicle. And typically, it easily hits that within a 5-year time frame. And within 5 years, we need to be replacing that vehicle. So all of the vehicles that have been mentioned this evening are, most all of them are for replacement of other vehicles that are beyond their useful life. Does that answer your question, Director?
Thank you, Kelly. Also, when these vehicles are sold, are the funds returned to the general fund budget or to the department budgets?
That's a great question, Director. Those funds, when the vehicles are sold, they're disposed of online, and we sell them online through our universal term contract that is for selling all vehicles online and all equipment online. And all of those funds go into the general permanent improvement fund. So, and I think that's a general fund, agency fund, but that Director Giancardello would know more about that.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yes.
Tonight, I have 2 speaker slips, Council President, a Tyler Clemente, and I don't know if he's on WebEx or if he's in person.
Chair, it says that Tyler should be joining us via WebEx, so Miss Angie would be opening him up for us.
At this particular time, we'd like to have our speakers address the issue.
Okay, I do not show Tyler.
Acknowledging that, we have Anisha Awad also has submitted speaker slip.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Let me state you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and any organization which you may be associated with.
Okay, my name is Anissa Awad, and I am representing the larger Columbus public and also the People's Budget Columbus. And we were just here to say that generally no explanation like by anyone here can really explain away the fact that these cop cars are being used in 5 years. That kind of just shows us how much patrolling is being done in neighborhoods that we know are disproportionately affected by police patrolling. And also just over $1 million, almost 2 million, is an excessive amount of money to be asking for in such a time of crisis in relation to police brutality and disproportionate judgment and treatment, especially in our neighborhoods of color and especially in our communities of color. So the People's Budget of Columbus and the people that we represent, as well as myself individually, hope that everyone here at City Council can reject this ordinance. And in doing so, showing the public that you are actively working on rebuilding the trust that City Council and the General Division of Safety have lost from the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Owa, for your commentary. At this time, is there any comments from my colleagues? Seeing none or hearing none, I move to take this ordinance from table.
Second.
And I now move for passage and ask for a voice vote.
Sorry, I didn't call the roll. I apologize. Clerk, please call the roll.
Brown, Dorans.
By voice.
By voice for that as well. Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Faber?
No.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Ms. Tyson?
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes. Remove from the table.
I now move for passage with a voice vote.
Thank you, Chair. And I just would like to remind all residents who are watching that we are in the middle of reimagining public safety in our community. And so these are individual ordinances. As we move through, we're having hearings on and we'll be voting on 4 very important pieces of legislation before we leave for break at the end of this month. And then under the leadership of our finance director and chair of safety, we'll have a broader conversation around what does public safety mean to Columbus and what that actually means to the budget and how we move forward. But we're going to go ahead and call the roll by voice.
We second it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brown?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Faber?
No.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Ms. Tyson?
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes, ordinance passed.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to move to ordinance 1269-2020 to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to enter a contract with Aero Computers in accordance with the provisions of sole source procurement to purchase a mapping system, keyboard kits, and accessories for the Division of Police to authorize an expenditure of $123,845 from the General Government Grant Fund and to declare an emergency. I have at this particular time Deputy Director of Public Safety George Speaksville. George, would you please speak to this sole source of this legislation, please?
Thank you, President Harden, Councilmember Brown, and members of council. This ordinance is utilizing federal grant funds to simply purchase a GIS system to be utilized in our helicopters. The GIS system shows the street names in exquisite detail, which will enhance the pilot's ability when responding to an emergency.
Director, can you speak to the how the unit improves public safety?
Councilmember Brown, helicopters play a significant role in the public safety of our city and due to mutual aid throughout all of Central Ohio. On average, over the past 10 years, the helicopters are the first law enforcement unit on scene 4,630 times a year. Moreover, they arrive on scene in an average of only 1 minute and 12 seconds in our city, which is approximately 225 square miles now. This rapid response is annually responsible for 109 misdemeanor arrests, 179 felony arrests, and on average, the helicopters are used to find 21 missing persons a year. I also believe that the helicopters help to de-escalate scenes, as both the officer and suspect know they're being watched and recorded from above.
Director Speaks, can you clarify the issue with regards to misdemeanor involvement of our helicopter?
Well, the stats I just cited, 109 misdemeanor arrests a year, 179 felony, these stats are looking back with 2020 hindsight. At the time of the initial emergency call, one doesn't generally know whether a response will ultimately be classified as a felony or a misdemeanor. Let me give you an example. Take a shots fired call. If it's later determined that the suspect simply fired the weapon into the ground or they were brandishing it in a menacing way, that's likely to be a misdemeanor. On the other hand, if the suspect fired the weapon at a residence or at a person, then that's a felony. Again, this determination is not made at the initial call, it's simply shots fired. The misdemeanor felony is sorted out afterwards, not at the time of the initial emergency call. Now, having said that, let me talk a little further about misdemeanors. First, there are violent misdemeanors. For example, last year, our helicopter caused the arrest of at least 25 violent misdemeanors. Charges such as domestic violence or assaults or aggravated menacing. Likewise, misdemeanor situations can prevent very dangerous situations. For example, last year there were at least 33 nonviolent misdemeanor arrests for crimes such as OMVI. There were at least 10 pursuits, and the helicopters are able to manage a pursuit much more safely so that to lessen the potential of crashes either by the suspect or responding emergency vehicles. There were at least 7 hip skip misdemeanors, and I do recall a public indecency around children. Again, you don't know initially whether it's going to result in a felony or a misdemeanor. That's usually developed after the facts are sorted out.
Director, can you also speak to how our helicopter unit responds to other Central Ohio jurisdictions in accordance with mutual aid agreements?
Sure. So when available, our helicopters do assist other law enforcement jurisdictions when called upon. I might add that likewise, those jurisdictions will come to our aid when they're available with other resources. I know that these helicopters are greatly appreciated by other jurisdictions. And lastly, I would note that through the years, we have greatly relied on federal grants to help offset the cost of the helicopters. The ordinance before you tonight is a good example of that. And many times there's a federal requirement that when you accept these grants, that you agree to give mutual aid to other jurisdictions in need.
And also, Director, would you speak to the issue of the resale value of helicopters, given the fact that there have been comments about us having 6 helicopters, why that is a reasonable number for the type of work that we do, and subsequently the impact on resale?
Well, I believe Chief Woods last week erroneously stated 6. When he was at the helicopter unit, we did have more helicopters. We have cut that down to 5. So the 5 helicopters, basically the plan is that every 10 years, you're going to replace and buy a new helicopter. So every 2 years, our plan is to try to purchase a new. We just switched our vendor, which will save the city substantial monies over the next 10 years compared to our prior vendor. That purchase was around, if memory serves, $3.5 million. 10 years from now, we would sell that copter. Because of the rotation of these 5 copters every 2 years, the resale value is quite high. That money is put back into the fund so that we're able to purchase additional helicopters. Likewise, I would note that we're a major metropolitan area. We strive for safety of these copters. They are flying over 1 million people. So we want to ensure that there are not too many hours put on those engines.
And also, Director Speaks, could you speak to the equipment that's authorized in this purchase order to be utilized by our helicopter unit? As an example, the FLIR system, forward-looking infrared, and the value associated with it.
Well, again, it's very sophisticated equipment. This equipment will show the exact pinpoint locations of the response at the scene so that the pilot is able to direct ground resources to the emergency call. But there are many, that's one example of the sophisticated equipment. For example, the best use that I can cite you is our infrared equipment. We have been called time and time again through the years to help find missing people. It's especially helpful at night. For example, I recall a toddler who somehow got out of the house at an apartment complex with many retaining ponds. We were able to find him without that toddler drowning, which was a concern. I recall an elderly individual with dementia at a nursing home who was somehow able to leave the nursing home in the middle of winter. He had very little clothes. The helicopter had a very quick response and again was able to use that technology to find that individual, and both of those individuals were alive. That's the great advantage of the copter.
Thank you. Tonight, I also have a speaker slip. If I may, again, I'm not certain whether they're on WebEx or if they are in person, but it's a Michelle Parsons.
I do not list Michelle Parsons, sir.
Thank you, Angie. Acknowledging that, are there any comments from my colleagues?
I have a question, council member.
Certainly. Please go forward.
Thank you. Deputy Director Speaks, you were talking about the use of the number of helicopters to keep costs down to preserve their life. It's hard to quantify that, I think, as a council member. And so I'm curious if you know, or if the department tracks the number of minutes per year that helicopters are in the air.
Council member, the hours are tracked due to there are specific maintenance requirements given the number of engine hours. So yes, and I'm more than happy to find that answer and give that to you. In general, I can tell you that the helicopters are generally up around 16 hours a day.
Any helicopter, so that's not one given one, it's all the fleet is up 16 hours a day.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. If there's additional nuance to that number that you would want to send follow up to my office, or possibly how that's spread out over the 5, I would be curious to kind of understand that. Does that make sense?
Yes, happy to do that. That is all put into a maintenance system, so I'm more than happy to get that for you now. I did say generally it was 16 hours during COVID. I know that some hours have been cut back. Forgive me, I don't know the exact number of hours that you're currently flying under COVID, but in the past, prior to COVID, the goal was 16 hours.
Are there 2 officers in each helicopter when it flies, or 1?
2, 1 pilot and then 1 spotter.
Okay. Do you know how many staffing hours that represents? So there's the equipment cost, which is, I know the last one we purchased was 3.4 million. Do you know then the corresponding staff cost of having two folks in the helicopter when it flies?
I am sure that I'll be able to calculate that. I'm happy to send it to your office. So,
okay.
So the overall cost would be the cost of purchase plus the maintenance, yearly maintenance, plus the yearly fuel, plus the salaries of the individuals. I'm happy to put that together for you now.
Sure. Thank you very much, Deputy Director, and thank you, Chair Brown.
Chair, I think you're still muted. Chair Brown, you're muted.
Oh, thank you, Council President.
Of course.
If there are no additional questions,
I think I saw Councilmember Dorns, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it. I'm sorry. Councilmember Dorns?
No problem, Chair Brown. Deputy Director speaks. I was wondering for a moment if you could speak just to this particular piece of legislation itself. The way that I have reviewed it, it appears that this is an upgrade to the existing fleet. That this would not, if we were to not pass this legislation, that would not interrupt the current service of the helicopter fleet. Could you speak to that or confirm that?
Councilman Dorns, I'm afraid I cannot. I am not knowledgeable on that. I don't know whether, for example, in the new helicopter, whether or not that initially included a GIS mapping system, or they were relying on these federal funds to purchase that mapping system. If it was already included, this would be an upgrade, you're correct. If not, they could have purchased the new copter without this mapping system, and it would be vital in order to utilize the copter. So let me look that up, and I'm happy to report tomorrow the answer.
Thank you, but this evening we don't have an answer to that. Just to be clear.
I do not know the specific answer to that question, sir.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Director.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, as Council President, just wanted to ask a question regarding timeline. As we know, we are having this specific conversation around demilitarization and what that means. As part of the Obama order, helicopters are listed under the controlled items, and so we are in the middle of a discussion about helicopters and their usage and when we use them. But could somebody, Director, maybe speak to the timing of why we need to move this piece of legislation pertaining to the grant?
President Harden, this was a competitive federal grant that was applied for and received, and we just received word that we were fortunate enough to receive the federal funds. That's why it's being timed now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President. Director speaks again. There's a timeline, if I'm not mistaken, on this grant. Is that correct?
There is, and forgive me, I do not have the grant application in front of me. I cannot tell you when that deadline is coming up. But you do have a limited amount of time to accept federal funds.
Thank you. If there are no additional questions, I move to take this ordinance from the table.
Second.
Please call the roll by voice.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Doran?
No.
Ms. Faber?
No.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Ms. Tyson?
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes, remove from the table.
And I move to amend this ordinance to 30-day.
Second.
Please call the row.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
No.
Ms. Faber?
No.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Ms. Tyson?
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes. Made it.
And I now move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
No.
Ms. Faber?
No.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Ms. Tyson?
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes, ordinance passed.
Council President, may I move on to Veterans and Senior Affairs?
Please.
In Veterans and Senior Affairs, I have ordinance 1394, 2020, to authorize an appropriation in the amount of $3,380,416 to the Recreation and Parks Grant Fund for the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging in connection with the Ohio Home Care Waiver Program and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for passage.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please
By
call the
voice.
row. By voice.
Thank you.
By voice.
Ms. Brown?
Abstain. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Faber?
I think that was a yes from Ms. Favor.
Mr. Remy?
Yes. Sorry.
Tyson?
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes, ordinance passed with the exception.
That's all I have this evening, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
The next committee to come before council is the Public Utilities Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Dorans. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President Harden. Before I get to public utilities, I want to apologize. In my duties as neighborhood chair, I meant to announce our West Side community meeting that's happening this Wednesday, July 8th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. You can RSVP with our Director of Neighborhood Engagement, Aaron Gibbons, at embigons@columbus.gov. Also, please check the Columbus City Council's Facebook and Twitter pages for more details on how to RSVP and join us for that important meeting with folks on the west side. We've did one on the south side a few weeks ago, and actually we got all the technology to work, and it was a great discussion had by everyone that was able to join us. So folks on the west side want to join council this Wednesday, would certainly encourage them to do so. But with that, I'd like to move on to the Public Utilities Committee. Tonight I have ordinance number 1265-2020 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter in a cooperation and purchase agreement, license agreement, and bill of sale with the Ohio Power Company, an expenditure of up to $50,000 from and within the Department of Water Operating Fund for the development, construction, and demolition of distributed energy resources, microgrid project to waive the competitive bid provisions of city code and to declare an emergency. This will serve the city's Tustin booster station located in the Pickerington and AEP, Ohio, will provide the city a rebate of up to 95% to cover the majority of the energy storage system and ground-mounted solar panel system in accordance with the agreement. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, Faber, Remy, Tyson, President Harden?
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance number 1266-2020 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a contract with Census USA, Inc. for ongoing software, hardware, and maintenance of systems that is required of the Enhanced Meter Project for the Division of Water, to waive competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, and to authorize an expenditure of $275,000. This operating contract is for the ongoing operation and maintenance of the Enhanced Meter Project. The Enhanced Meter Project will replace outdated and underperforming meters, installing radio transmitting infrastructure to allow for wireless readings related to billing software at a central location, which provides an environmentally friendly way to read meters within the city. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, Faber, Remy, Tyson, President Harden?
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance number 1335-2020 to authorize the Director of Public Utility to execute 2 construction contracts with Trabco Construction and John Irmo and Sons for the 2020 water main repairs project for the Division of Water, to authorize a transfer and expenditure of up to $1,268,533 within the Water General Obligation Bond Fund to provide for the payment of prevailing wage services to the Department of Public Service and to amend the 2019 capital improvement budget. These contracts will provide assistance to our water line maintenance crews in completing water main break repairs in a timely manner that should the number of breaks exceed our normal internal capacity to respond to. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, I have ordinance number 1344-2020 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter in a construction contract with George J. Eigel and Co. for the roof restoration Clintonville 1 Benham Glencoe Area 1 project, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of $2,179,833 from the Sanitary Sewer Reserve Fund to the Ohio Water Development Loan Fund, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $2,197,833 from the Ohio Water Development Loan Fund, to authorize expenditure of up to $2,000 for prevailing wage services within the Sanitary General Obligation Voted Bond Fund. This project consists of replacing or redirecting downspouts from up to 381 houses in Clintonville, 1 blueprint area. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, I have ordinance number 1428-2020 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a service contract with Lime Corp Ltd. for the Hapcremene Water Plant Sludge Removal Lagoon 1 2020 project, to authorize an expenditure of up to $2,438,000 within the Water General Obligation Voted Bond Fund, to authorize the payment of prevailing wage service to the Department of Public Service, and to authorize an amendment to the 2019 capital improvements budget. The sludge lagoons at Hapcremene are used to temporarily store sludge produced under normal plant operations. The sludge in lagoons must be periodically removed to restore storage capacity. This project will remove sludge from Lagoon 1, and it will be transported for beneficial reuse outlets, providing another use for what have otherwise been disposed of in the McKinn Avenue quarry. Doing so will also preserve the life of the McKinley Avenue quarry. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. President Harden, may I move on to the Technology Committee?
Please.
Thank you. Tonight in Technology, we have ordinance number 1386-2020 to appropriate $825,000 within the Special Income Tax Fund, to authorize the Director of Finance and Management on behalf of the Department of Technology and various city agencies to associate all general budget reservations resulting from this ordinance with the appropriate universal term contract/purchase agreements for the purchase of new and replacement desktop computers, computer-related products, and equipment from 3 pre-established universal term contracts/purchasing agreements from Brown Enterprise Solutions LLC and Soft Choice LLC. To authorize expenditure of $530,000 from the Department of Technology Information Services Division Information Services Operating Fund, and to authorize the expenditure of $825,000 from the Special Income Tax Fund, and to declare an emergency. The new computers and equipment authorized by this ordinance for the city's general fund agencies, the desktop computers, printers, servers, and computer-related products and equipment being replaced are outdated and or obsolete. The computer equipment being replaced is used for the operation of applications that are vital to the daily operations of the city of Columbus. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, President Harden. That's all I have in my committees this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Public Service and Transportation Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Favor. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight in Public Service and Transportation, we have ordinance number 1453-2020 to authorize the Director of Public Service to execute agreements with and to accept and expend funding from the Ohio Department of Transportation relative to the resurfacing West Broad Street urban paving project, to authorize the return of any unused funds if necessary and to declare an emergency. This project encompasses resurfacing West Broad Street from the Guilford Avenue to Starling Street. Other planned improvements include partial and full depth repavement repairs, traffic signal upgrades and adjustments, new bikeway facilities, and ADA curb ramps. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I would move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. President Harden, that's all I have in public service. May I move on to criminal justice?
Please.
Tonight in the Criminal Justice Committee, we have ordinance number 1484-2020 to authorize and direct Columbus City Council to accept a $50,000 grant from the Ohio State University Alliance for the American Dream, a collaboration with Schmidt Futures, to authorize the appropriation of up to $50,000 from the unappropriated balance of the General Government Grants Fund, to authorize an appropriation within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, to authorize a transfer of cash between the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund and the General Grants Fund, to authorize an expenditure of $79,200, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of City Code, to authorize the Columbus City Council to enter into contract with Smart Columbus LLC, and to declare an emergency. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Dorrance, but I do want to congratulate him and his team for their work on this important effort thus far. Councilmember Dorrance, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council Member Favor, and just appreciate the opportunity to speak to this legislation tonight, and certainly you and your team's partnership on this important project. So thanks for giving me a few minutes on the floor. Columbus City Council has been awarded a $50,000 grant from the Ohio State University Alliance for the American Dream, collaboration with Schmidt Futures, in support of our efforts to digitize the record sealing application process and expand access to legal support services for Columbus residents with a criminal record. As some may know, I volunteered with the Columbus Legal Aid Society for years as a pro bono lawyer. One of the pro bono services I provided with them has been at their record sealing clinics. These clinics help folks gain access to the complex system of criminal record sealing. One clinic I volunteered at in late 2019 had several hundred clients attend. This clearly demonstrated the need in our community for these types of services. However, the reason that so many folks showed up that night is because someone had posted about the clinic and it went viral on social media. That night, I knew that we needed to do more to connect people with record sealing services, because people with criminal records are trapped in cycles of economic and social instability, as the uniqueness of this poses significant barriers to securing housing and employment. And because people of color are more likely to be arrested than white people in America, criminal records exacerbate and perpetuate racial inequality that is already present within our society. That's why for the last year, I've worked along with many here at Council and other organizations to create a new technology-based system to connect those in need with existing record sealing services. A $25,000 grant was previously awarded to Council for the same initiative in 2019 and accepted by Council in January 2020, bringing the total grant award for Council's record sealing initiative to $75,000. These funds will be used to cover necessary technological and administrative expenses incurred to fully develop and complete the grant proposal in order to secure further investment from the Alliance for the American Dream and Schmidt Futures. I certainly would be remiss to not give a special shout out to someone in my office, Hannah Miller, my legislative aide, the author of the grant, and certainly who's been serving as the team lead for this initiative and has done a hell of a job. I also want to recognize the Franklin County Municipal Clerk of Court, Larry Tyak, and her staff, the Columbus City Department of Technology, the Legal Aid Society of Columbus, and Smart Columbus, and others for their partnership, collaboration, and bringing us all one step closer to achieving equity for residents burdened by criminal record sealing. So my thanks goes out to them all for this important work, and excited to share more with the community as we build this important tool to help folks be able to take a step forward in their lives after a criminal incident. So with that, I certainly would like to turn it back over to Chair Favor.
Thank you, Councilmember Dorrance, and what a timely piece of legislation. for us to discuss this evening. Once again, I just want to just extend a round of applause to your team for the amazing work that you have done for over the past year to bring this to fruition. I also want to acknowledge that we've received over 30 written pieces of testimony in support of this legislation. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Yes,
Yes,
I do. Thank you. Certainly, Councilmember Favor and certainly Councilmember Dorns, just really appreciate this legislation. You know, as we pass the resolution, racism is a public health crisis. This certainly begins to move dealing with racism and trying to eradicate racism and its effects on individuals in our community. So thank you very much for this legislation. It will certainly go to helping individuals to be able to have a different start on their lives based on their records being sealed. Thank you so very much.
You're absolutely correct, Councilmember Tyson. Thank you. Any additional comments?
Chair, I would just like to congratulate Councilmember Dorns and his staff. Hannah Miller has worked so hard on this, and it's been neat to hear the updates over the last several months. This is an example of good and innovative government. This is government working for the people, and I'm very, very proud. This was birthed out of council, went out and created good partnerships. Excited about the relationship with smart cities as they continue to grow and expand in their mission. Now they're doing criminal justice work. This is, awesome. So thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Council President. Any additional comments? Well, seeing none, I'd move for passage.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have in my committees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Economic Development Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. Tonight I have ordinance number 160X 2020 to declare the Scioto Peninsula New Community Authority to be organized in a body politic and corporate, to define the boundary of the authority's new community district, to provide the method of the Board of Trustees of the authority, fix the pursuant to ordinance number 0193/2017 and an economic development agreement pursuant to ordinance number 3121/2016 for its Scioto Peninsula project that will redevelop city-owned property located on the Scioto Peninsula immediately west of Cosi. The city and developer desire to form a new community authority pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 349, to support that redevelopment. On December 5th, 2019, a petition for the organization of the Scioto Peninsula New Community Authority was submitted to City Council. City Council, by resolution 24X 2019, passed December 16, 2019, determined the sufficiency of the petition and set a public hearing date on the petition, which was held on January 7, 2020. This resolution officially creates the proposed new community authority and makes the city's initial appointment to the authority's Board of Trustees. Are there any questions? My colleagues and the director is available to answer any as well. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll on ordinance 0106X-2020.
Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, Tyson, President Harden.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance 63/2020 to authorize the finance and management to modify a contract with Experience Columbus for marketing services to restore tourism, convention business, strengthen the image of the city of Columbus, Ohio, to authorize the transfer of $2,285,432 in CARES Act funds from the Department of Development to the Department of Finance, and to authorize the initial contract was entered into pursuant to 5040 and is funded of Columbus City Codes. Sorry about that. This initial contract.
Councilmember,
I can't hear
Yeah.
the council member at all.
your microphone's not working. One sec.
That's the 1, 2, 3. Hear me now?
I can
hear
now.
that.
You can?
Yeah, now we can.
Apologize for that. Where did you miss off?
I heard like the first 2 sentences and then it started going out.
Okay, it's actually not. Yeah. It's not working again. Mm-mm.
Is this better?
Yes.
The initial contract was entered. This initial contract was projected to be $10,839,000. However, due to the economic impact of the coronavirus, actual hotel motel excise tax collections are anticipated to be significantly less. The economic fallout of the coronavirus has impacted Ohio and the national economy at historic levels. Ohio's unemployment rate has risen to 16.8%, an increase of 11% previous pre-coronavirus levels. So this travel and tourism sector of the economy has been disproportionately impacted and is experiencing an unprecedented contraction in business due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I have asked the CEO and executive director of the Experience Columbus to join us this evening. Brian Ross should be available. Brian, I'm going to turn the floor over to you to speak to this legislation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council President Harden. Thank you, Council Member Remy. Council Members Favor, Liz Brown, Tyson, Mitch Brown, and Dorans for allowing me to speak regarding this ordinance. We know that there are many priorities in our community, and now more than ever, Experience Columbus and the Greater Columbus Sports Commission can play an integral partnership in proactively addressing some of those urgencies. We will responsibly and collaboratively assist in igniting a travel economy that prior to the pandemic welcomed 43 million visitors who spent $7 billion and supported 78,000 jobs in Columbus and Franklin County. In 2019, $50 million in bed tax was generated, which helped fund our partners with the Greater Columbus Arts Council, just over $7.5 million, Human Services, $2.7 million, and affordable housing at $2 million. The city has lost 157 events, representing over 227,000 room nights and $193 million in visitor spend. That working with the Experience Columbus and Greater Columbus Sports Commission in 2020. Tourism economics data shows Columbus's MSA lost 47,000 jobs in the hospitality and leisure sector from February through April due to COVID-19. We need to help get these people back to work and help our nonprofit and small business partners begin doing business. Every $1 spent on tourism generates $37 back in visitor spending. A $10.6 million bed tax investment will generate $13.2 million in bed tax revenue, an additional $5.2 million in income tax. In income tax, totaling $18.4 million or a 174% return on investment. The Live Forward campaign is multifaceted and addresses our immediate challenges, opportunities over the next 3 to 8 months, and long-term convention and sporting event potential. If we don't communicate with our residents, potential visitors, and meeting professionals now, we will lose a lot of business opportunities when people are ready to choose destinations to visit. We will engage our residents responsibly and collaboratively with our partners to provide information on how to safely experience businesses, attractions, hotels, and venues that are open for business. We will also assist in promoting virtual experiences for those residents who may choose to engage digitally. Travel is the #1 expenditure for discretionary household spending. National studies show there is a tremendous pent-up demand. 69% of people, when comfortable, will get into a car and drive. The first trip people will take will be to visit friends and relatives, of which in 2019, Columbus welcomed 20.1 million visitors here for friends and relatives. We also need to proactively pursue future conventions and sporting events, keeping the momentum that we've invested in for ASAE, PCMA, and the Women's Final Four. We have over 340 groups representing 1.1 million tentative room nights from 2021 through 2027. It's imperative that we keep that momentum going forward. Investing in Experience Columbus and the Greater Columbus Sports Commission is investing in our city's human and economic development, image, and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate that. Director, do you have any comments that you'd like to make in regards to this important legislation?
Yes, thank you, President Hardin, Chair Remy, members of City Council. We're moving forward this legislation because it's important to the economic recovery of our city. That we, as Brian mentioned, we need to make sure we maintain the momentum that we've experienced from our previous investment in this work of Experience Columbus, but it also serves those residents who are working in our service industry. It's important. They were hit first as COVID impacted the community, and we're afraid that they're going to probably be hit the longest. So whatever we can do to maintain our momentum and get some wins during this pandemic, bring those jobs back, I think it's critically important. I'll point out when we first received the CARES funding dollars, we announced that it was going to go into 3 buckets. About half of the money was going to go to support the response to the health crisis. Another $50 million was going to go to serve our residents in the human services. And to date, working with council, we've appropriated close to $20 million towards human services. And the last amount, approximately $26 million, is for the economic recovery. We have put money towards helping our small businesses. Now we're looking to put some money towards helping those agencies that have been funded through the bed tax and have been impacted by the COVID crisis. So this is really critical as we work towards our economic recovery. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Director. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage by voice.
Second.
Please call the row by voice.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans?
No.
Ms. Favor?
No.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Yes.
President Harden?
Yes, ordinance passed. Mr. Chair, if it's all right, can we take a pause for zoning? May I have a motion to recess for zoning?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, Tyson, President Harden.
All right, we will reconvene in 5 minutes for zoning.
Dorans favor, Remy Tyson. President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
So moved.
Please call the roll. There's that.
You might be muted.
Councilmember Tyson. You're muted still. Sorry. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We permit 3 speakers on each side to the applicant. On the advice of the testimony, speak either minimum 5 year persisting child 277 dash 78 passed December the 11th of 9, a child daycare facility. The City Department's recommendation is approval, and the Greater Hilltop Area Commission's recommendation is. Colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Ordinance is 1467-2020 to rezone 975 Hilliard and Rome Road, being points from R Rural District to C4 Commercial District. The applicant is Nathan Klein, care of Attorney Craig Moncrief. The proposed use approval 7-0. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, seeing none.
Pass.
Thank you. Thank you. The next ordinance is 1485-2020 to rezone 2492 290 feet east of McVeigh Boulevard from the R Rural Residential District to the C2 Commercial C2 Shannon. The proposed use is an office development. The City Department's recommendation is approval, and the Far Northwest Coalition's recommendation is. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Please.
The component is a variance for the previous ordinance we just passed. So again, anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against this council variance, including staff, Ordinance 1486-2020 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3372 building design standards of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 22 commercial development. The City Department's if there are no questions or comments from my.
Second.
Please call.
I move for passage. Thank you. The next ordinance is 14 West and Southwest Residential and CPD, commercial plan, physical planning, and real estate. The City Department's recommendation, if there are no questions or comments.
Please call the.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Let's see, look either for or against this council variant. Answer, I will. Grant a variance from the provisions of section 32.25 maximum side yard private garage of the Columbus City Codes for the garage with reduced development. The proposed in the German Village area.
President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you.
Please call the roll. He has to fix his computer.
moved.
Is there a second?
Oh, I have a problem.
Oh, see, we can do both of them.
Second.
I have a little bit of a problem. Do you have this legislation? It's not on here. Do you have this legislation to read the? I don't. Oh, here, I'll just use this.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy Tyson, President Harden.
Meeting is reconvened. Councilman.
All right. Thank you, Finance and Management. To modify a contract with the Greater Columbus Arts Council, Inc., for the purpose of restoring and sustaining arts and cultural services that enrich development to the Department of Finance, and to authorize the expenditure of $1,558,337 from the CARES Act Fund. In an effort to address the economic impact to Columbus, provided to the Greater Columbus Arts Council as a means to replace lost hotel, motel tax proceeds for the first 6 months of 2020. These economic recovery funds were provided to Congress with overwhelming bipartisan support and signed into law March 27, 2020. The Greater Columbus Arts Council will utilize these funds to continue administering a variety of art and cultural, and CEO of the Greater Columbus Arts Council to
There we go. It's good to see everybody. For your past critical support and willing organizations are critical to essential part of our community. Since the start of the stay-at-home organization, the Artist Relief Fund granted $66 to help artists program timing to ease the pandemic and to provide. About 3 weeks ago, we award support to, as you know, in response to the protest to create murals businesses, resulted in images of unity, love, and hope to artists and advocated artists to paint. The Arts Council is committed to focusing on as we work to ensure targeted towards 3 primary areas. Arts Council with basic unemployers in the city to come. These organizations work begun in late 2019, effective prioritizing board governance grants for small and mid-sized art for artists. Columbus Gospel Fest Ideas, a new program, has one more line, which is a new program, is in August. Direct outcome of its impact on arts to organizations of color that in maintaining the current employment level voted on exhibition called Create, and I'd be glad to walk you through for the arts sector in culture.
the Greater Columbus Arts Council does for the city.
Thank you, President Harden, Chair Remy, members of council. I would just support this effort as well.
The arts does is important. Even like this, even Tom mentioned with the mural voice, it will enhance out, equity in his presentation. How Tom, I appreciate him spending that much time today. Tom, just want to again to continue to thrive.
Member Tyson, are there any other questions or comments from passage by voice?
Yes.
Mr. Tyson.
Yes.
Number 1443, Holding LLC, to outlaw auditor tax parcel ID number 5266704 Road, and to declare an emergency to construct a $56 million distribution space. Developer will finance. The Department of Development will submit in order to support the reimbursement of costs. Submit for City Council consideration. We have Hawkins and Integrin.
Thank you very much. All hear me? We speak before you and be considered before council. We worked in a difficult and uncertain economic city to compete with surrounding new outside improvements. As part of this, greatly appreciate.
Make on this.
Yes, thank you, President. The TIF and the enterprise, 2 million square feet, making the upfront public regional build at least 2 million square feet, enough speculative space, 3,000 square feet. Is pretty surprise zone agreement, a 10-year set doing 15-year 100.
Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Please call the row.
Brown, Dorans, favor.
Create the Rickenbacker 317-5709 taxation to require the owners of those to the Columbus City Equivalent Fund for the deposit of the remainder of the urgency. This is a companion will be made with respect to the improvement to the new district in the same manner as usual. The non-school portion of those service payments will be paid to the parcels. Are there any questions?
Second.
49, 2020 to authorize 75% of 1,000 in the creation of 4 net new full piece of the previous legislation is being presented as 30 days. Podium, state your name and your. Not yet.
There we go. There we go.
You got it? All right. I'd hate for you not to hear what I have.
Another unjustified problem that the public should believe Mayor House space located in the heart of Rickenbacker base at Rickenbacker and property tax theft is required. Property tax from revenue from educational needs abatements in the tens of millions of dollars are United States and 33% of Canada's population. Due to the ongoing increase of consumer buying trend, away a $3.34 million tax abatement that promised year and quality and defunding taking place here in Columbus and across the quote. Tax abatements are pocketing tax money that should have been used black and brown people. Your company is it is focused on eradicating. Then you need to stop granting these tax of the students who are enrolled in our Columbus public school and amend your 10% affordable housing, or just going to be more talk.
Do you have any comments this evening?
Lying. It is our hope that it will, and the income tax revenue persist.
Tyson, President Hart.
Be deposited in the Rickenbacker TIF agreement with 1489 within and around the Rickenbacker. Are there any questions?
Call the roll.
Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Tyson.
The tax increment financing area encompass taxation to requirements to the Columbus City Schools to their an emergency. That's from my colleagues this evening.
Brown, Dorans, favor.
The next committee to come before council is the Health and Human.
-2020. It is to authorize and direct the Board of Health program in the health department structure and 4 of the 5 leading of death in London and the West Side priority community. Sensation grant funds are used to reduce exploits outdoor space policy development, addressing smoke-free around tobacco targeted policy. The data will be minority communities. Research indicates that African American neighborhoods have a marketing of menthol crisis. And if you want more information, 614-645.
Second.
Now I want to, with Lions to authorize appropriations and expenditures of working with the commission. That's okay. We're excited about the lives of Black girls. And finally, I look forward to no questions or comments. I move for pass.
For conceiving of this to diagnose. Second.
Proceed from our girls to make sure that our girls counsel. So thank you so much. Oh, yes.
Please call.
1640 reduce and to prevent the spread of COVID-19 said mandate and urgency due to COVID-19. And in several weeks, the state began to transition to reopen that require us to and peak to numbers that we has issued a new counties that has ranked at the second decrease in-person interaction. In addition, we know that face coverings are important. Coverings are most likely that people wear face when social distance critical. That is why we're to educate. Moreover, we also want to make sure that legislation that we're presenting is at stake as well. The state guidelines is under and late months. It is about keeping you and ordinance. This is some additional application. Edward Johnson, the director of
your family. So I do appreciate that and the affirmation before the members of council. This would constitute, we feel very good about that to date when it comes to health rate. And so we feel confident that it will be very rare that there's a second would be $1,000 fines as occurs. That would be in particles. And so as we're in the individual pool, that would be a $25 fine in our environmental health division, or answer any questions as I'm able to.
Safety will be addressing the matter.
Mr. Speaks, I'm
better. Thank help to lessen the threat of COVID-19. Letter of this ordinance.
Earning from
Director Speaks. Can you speak? Fighters will aggression in there, and I want to understand by each division.
And it says individuals while acting carry out their official duties or functions. Quote, when it would interfere, should be warned. However, perhaps this, off the top of my head.
Okay, I would an officer is interacting with a member. I think you mean interfere, I think can be broadly interpreted. Interfering really means, or talk a little bit louder to get my point across. So that would be folks and the firefighter, our fire.
Yes, I was going to meet with both our.
Extend my appreciation to you today, our residents, that we are could potentially triggered and around Columbus. And so I know that we're all sure that we have and to have some semblance of a. Thank you, Councilmember Tyson.
So I agree 100% with you. Cited for a violation, really about how we can continue to keep Council President Harden. Yes.
All the council members, original,
Mhm.
the seriousness of, there was a man, if you are out in public and you cannot, especially to be punitive, but we're trying to sell, this legislation will give on this. It was a lot of conversation.
Yes. As you said, the administration, we just want everyone just to mask up. Other comments from my council colleagues?
Second.
Legislation in my committees.
This, I am going to.
6 is to amend section of sworn personnel to the Columbus City Code. Officers conduct themselves in accordance to have officer-involved shootings. Cases in which a vehicular pursuit to engage the State Bureau of Criminal to perform indemnity, being consulted and informed to the city attorney's office regarding the legality.
Anytime that an employee is involved in the referrals of these particular investigations were previously conducted. The legislation investigations to be conducted by the Division of Police and investigations, which was the current, upon conducting police. The memorandum of understanding, but the memorandum.
President, we do have some speakers.
Most compassionate. Hello, my name is Sukriding. I have been disgusted by the city to defund the Columbus Police Department. The CPD, a slap in the face of every Black person, adult or child, can be lethal. So as it relates to the invaders, we cannot ask police officers to refer themselves. Don't work. Officers in the past because they can only offer their recommendations turned on. Like in the case of 15-year-old, this day, no footage has been produced, even at the request of the family. That money be invested into the Black council members. If this council, as is, isn't accountable to us.
Thank you, Ms. Farrar. 3 minutes, and please state your name and any.
Mr. Roberts is in person.
In person, thank you.
Mr. Roberts, welcome to council.
Council members, my name is Ron Roberts, and I'm country. For the last third concerning the Columbus Division of Police critical incident receives an impeccable reputation, even nationally. The United States agencies have contacted the Columbus to teach their best practices in officer and to police-involved incidents. Commitments were made that he gathers objective details and facts, recommendations, final decisions regarding any departmental. If facts matter, the integrity of these investigations was not justice, was not because there was a lack of who say they don't trust the Columbus Police Certs, most of which are public records. Prosecutor's office and investigators. CERT is an investigation. Some officers were administrative of Ohio Bureau of Investigation. Council members want to ultimately give these investigations to eyes, allow BCI to investigate the fatals, and allow CERT to continue Let me summarize my key points. CERT enjoys across the country. CERT provides currently supports. Despite this amendment, you are basing it on satisfied no matter who conducts these investigations. Police Department, City Council, please keep in mind we should all seek justice.
For the record, you did go over about two minutes, and so.
Yeah.
For this evening on the subject matter?
You'll submit it. Thank you, Officer Picasso. That was the statement that.
Are there any comments from my council? Hearing none, I think it's important, Council President, to the CERT team that currently exists. Executive order, I move for.
Please call the roll. Thank you, council member information. I have to establish a community bill of rights for water emergency. On June 18th, 20 editions containing 8,991 as required by section 42.5 of the charter, which requires not less if this council finds that the petition constitution, council cannot issue all over town. These folks are working and we will continue to do so.
Harden, act petition be placed upon the ballot.
Thank you, Remy.
See, for our environment, we know the importance. Fourth, that stands true to this day and have an effect on our on the opportunity.
Quick.
Not representing organizations is vital to supporting justice and thrive. Our local community and environment from toxic waste. We have rights, and I believe that it has unity. I Appreciate for allowing me to speak.
Just a they are noted.
Really just questions for you guys. You can't allow guys are until even November or oil of our community, and others listening about there can be referral from the police.
Thank you, Emma. I will say quickly that I've committed to engaging on different levels. What is in our watershed that we got in the Bill of Rights to have the conversation, general, to add in additional information.
In the sense that the legislative body cannot be voted on by the legislative charter. Council would have to first vote to do not be able to requires that the petition signatures be as relates to that petition that itself amend the charter.
Done.
Harden.
Right. Columbus, and to